Hello, people of the internet, this is KaijuNoir.
And it's Pete.
And we're back from our really long hiatus since the last review that we did together.
How long ago was that, would you say?
Since January?
Has it really been since the marked ones?
Yeah. Well, I could just say that the movie was so bad that it just made us stop reviewing movies altogether.
Wait. What about Thor?
That was way back last year.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is the year of Captain America. What's wrong with you? Were you frozen in ice?
Yes, I was. No, you're right. It was the marked ones. I got possessed for a short while there, and now I'm back. So welcome back.
Yeah. You traveled back in time in a stupid fashion, and then ended up causing a series of progressively shitty horror found footage films.
Yes, that is exactly correct.
Okay, so yeah, we're back. There were some really huge... Well, the reason why we haven't been making reviews was partly because we've been incredibly busy, with the semester, and second part was technical difficulties. My computer pretty much crapped out on me.
Boo!
And so yeah, it was like a lot of factors that kept us from watching movies and reviewing movies together, but we still managed to, mostly in my case, still managed to head to the theaters every so often, so that I can at least provide some content as to what I've been doing the last 6 months.
Yeah, don't ask me what I was doing. I'm just a mystery at this point.
No, we established you were possessed. And
yes. Oh, you know what? That's very true. Okay.
Yeah. The less we said about the adventures of possessed Pete, the better.
Let's keep that going.
Yes. Yeah, so we're going to be deciding to cover the entire first half of 2014 and all the movies that came out before, and quickly summarize go over our thoughts the best we can, all in one video.
Why? Because we're freaking amazing.
Yeah, yes. We don't need that's like half an hour to discuss every movie. No.
That's not the way it works these days,
No, it
That's
doesn't.
not the way it works.
I mean, sure, it works for every single critic in the business, but
not for us. No.
We're better than that.
Of course.
Okay, so let's begin with a movie. Well, the majority of these movies, just to let you know in advance, were films that I have seen. But if you're free to join in, Pete, whenever you want to ask a certain question or whatnot.
By all means.
So the first movie I wanted to cover was The Wind Rises, which was supposedly the last film that was being worked on by legendary animator, Japanese animation director Hayao Miyazaki, known for such classics as My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, Castle in the Sky, Howl's Moving Castle, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Spirited Away.
The best known, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know. I think,
actually,
Spirited Away was given a big release, but then I'm not sure. Maybe Ponyo kind of took over that in popularity.
Maybe. I started thinking about that, and then I started thinking about some of the older ones. I know those got really popular too. I guess not as mass audience wise as the last couple of ones, but I guess you're right. I mean, maybe Ponyo might have overrun Spirited Away, but still, I like Spirited Away better.
Oh, I love Spirited Away, yeah, but maybe Totoro's the most iconic one.
You think so? Well, I guess so, because whenever I see someone parodying it, I usually
in South Park in
South Park. I know Simpsons did it recently. I know a lot of other things have done it too, but it's usually you see the bus stop.
Yeah, definitely the bus. You've seen that image being parodied so many times.
Yeah.
So yeah, The Wind Rises tells the story of a real life person. Sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me, and it's been a long time. But it was the movie's based on a real person who was a Japanese engineer who worked in during World War II, and he is famous for creating designing and creating two very important aircrafts that were used during World War II, and his designs kind of revolutionized the aviation industry in Japan, especially since in the movie it was made very clear that Japan was behind about 10 years technologically speaking compared to the likes of Germany and America. And so the movie focused on this person's life and his struggles and the immense pressure that his government has placed on him, pretty much saying hey man, all of us are relying on you. Okay, we are getting our butts kicked out there. It's up to you to help us. And so you see his life, you see him growing up, you see his aspirations to create and to fly, and the kind of like the tragedy that he is, because due to his eyesight he is not able to fly, but he still wants to help to create machines that can fly. And the scenes where he meets his inspiration, who was an Italian engineer, he has these dream sequences where he meets his idol, and these dream sequences are perhaps some of the most inspirational scenes I've ever seen, and the animation itself only makes it even that much more beautiful. And the character himself is very quiet, very soft-spoken, but you see a lot of his personality shine through his actions. And it's interesting to note that a lot of scenes show him smoking a lot. There's like tons of ashtrays and cigarette smoke, and that only shows just how much pressure he's in to have to constantly use smoking to just get him through the day. And perhaps the best thing of all is the romance between him and this woman that he meets early on in life, that he later meets years later. And this this relationship ends up going through an incredibly emotional moment, which is not surprising considering this is a Miyazaki moment. So prepare yourself for an epic field trip.
Now, one thing I want to ask is how grounded in reality is this? Because almost every single one of his films in the past have been very artsy, very creative, very fairy tale like. In this movie, what's that like?
Oh, that yeah. Thank you for reminding me. Unlike a lot of his other movies, which were very focused on the fantastical elements, this is a very grounded film. Very it's based on a real person, based on a true story, and so does take place in Japan in the middle of World War II.
Yeah, that's why when you said that, it really got me wondering, and especially because I haven't seen this movie, it really got me wondering, well, what's the setting? Like I said, almost every movie he's ever done has really been cultural and fantasy based. So, but go on.
Well, yeah, it's very cultural, and here he's taken like cultural from a historical perspective, but there is a bit of fantasy in there, like with the aforementioned dream sequences. It's those where he just takes advantage of his animation, and there are points where there are a lot those scenes where the planes are flying, and seeing anything fly in this film is just mesmerizing. It's still, like, despite the fact that it doesn't have a lot of fantasy elements, it's still a Hayao Miyazaki movie through and through. It's another solid, amazing, amazing knockout of the park. Because this man, Hayao Miyazaki, he's such an incredibly talented man. I've always considered him the Walt Disney of anime, and every single one of his films that I have seen were always like these incredibly 5-star films, and The Wind Rises, or The Wind Rises, as my friends like to say, is another solid 5 out of 5 from me.
Nice. One quick question, off topic, but what was the first Hayao Miyazaki film you ever watched?
Kiki's Delivery Service on VHS.
Mine was Spirited Away.
Now that one was the first I saw theatrically, and probably the second movie I saw after Kiki's Delivery Service.
I actually had no idea of any Hayao Miyazaki or who he was or what those that there was previous movies they had made. But I remember one day, I think this was back when I was getting into manga and anime. I saw it at a Spotlight Video, not a Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, but a Spotlight Video, like their lower end brother.
Yeah, which is, of course, I think that was the first to go before Hollywood and Blockbuster.
I think so too. But I went in, I saw the movie. It looked really cool. We kept it for weeks. But that's it.
Okay, so the next movie on the list is The Lego Movie, which is another movie that I have seen, and I can't believe you haven't seen it.
I know. I've been wanting to watch that movie so bad. Before it came out, after it came out, I don't know what's taken me so long.
The Lego Movie, what's really interesting, kind of like takes the generic hero's journey story, where like you're the chosen, like the prophecy has chosen you to save us all, and they kind of like flipped it upside down. So it's funny, like I had low expectation going into this movie. When I thought to myself, the Lego movie, really? Well, not going into it, but when I first heard the announcement of a Lego movie, I was like, really? Legos? What can you do with that? Oh my god, that was amazing! Wow. This movie takes, the concept of Legos is that even though you have instructions to tell you what to build, basically the appeal of Legos as a toy is imagination. Build what your heart's desire. And they took that concept and made it like the central focus of the movie, where you had this city, I forgot what it was called, like Brickville or something, led by President Business, played by Will Ferrell, and he plans to take over the world. He wants everything to stay preserved. He wants everything to go by the book, to everybody to follow the instructions. Everything should be as it is, and he wants it to stay that way permanently. But then you have these characters, I forgot what they're called, but they're builders. They're extremely talented in that they're able to break apart the world and combine it and to make new inventions of sorts, new creations. And the main character, I believe his name was Bennett. I'm not sure, but he was played by, I think, Chris Pratt.
Yep.
Yeah. He was considered to be the chosen one, but he was picked as the chosen one according to Morgan Freeman's character, and he's off on adventures to learn how to be a builder himself, and along the way meet a fantastic group of supporting characters, including what is perhaps one of the best versions of Batman I've seen on film.
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett as Batman. It's funny, like a lot of the time. Well, pretty much every time you see Batman on film, with the exception of the Adam West movie, Batman is always considered to be like this super serious character, and because of that, he's grown incredibly popular. And a lot of Batman fans have this like mentality that Batman can do anything. Why? Because he's Batman. So they pretty much took that egotistical, like he can do anything because he's Batman, and placed it on Batman himself, and made him this really over-the-top, cartoony douchebag, where he himself is like, I'm Batman. Hey guys, hey losers, what's up? You guys aren't as cool as me because I'm Batman. You know, even like when he makes a fool out of himself, he tries to make it look like he's still cool. Yeah, first try.
And I know I haven't seen the movie, but I can imagine Will Arnett's voice just being perfect for that role too.
Oh yeah. I want to see more of this Batman. I want to see. I want Ben Affleck to take notes after Will Arnett. You know, yeah, Michael Keaton. Nah, forget about him. Kevin Conroy. Nah, don't even bother with him. No. I think his name was Bruce Greenwood, or I don't know. The guy from Under the Red Hood. Yeah. Wait, Bruce Greenwood, I think that's a singer. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of fun, highly creative. The ending is got very emotional, surprisingly. And what they do with the Lego universe and everything that it represents is faithfully recreated here, brick by brick. Also, I gotta love all the cameos in this movie, and even like this real fun, like not like a subplot, but a running gag between Superman and Green Lantern, who are both played by Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, Green Lantern is like, hey, Superman, do you want to hang out? Sorry, I think Krypton exploded. You know, he's constantly trying to avoid him. But yeah, another fantastic movie. Can't believe I saw two movies that surprised me to no end. Another 5 out of 5 for me. Let's see. So next on the list is The Muppets Most Wanted. Again, this is another movie I saw. Did you see the first Muppet movie?
I did not, unfortunately.
Of course, you never see the first of any series.
Never, except for later on, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah. So for the Muppets Most Wanted, it kind of like continues off sort of from the first movie, where it's kind of like another very generic story that relies mostly on the fact that you are watching these characters that you've known for years, and you're supposed to enjoy them as opposed to the actual story itself. Because the first movie was all about, we gotta get the band back together. Here it's, oh no, it's the old switcheroo. Which one is which? Because Kermit was replaced by this Muppet frog that just so happens to look like him, called Constantine. And Constantine is a very funny character. I really like him, and I hope he comes back for more. He's very humorous, very egomaniacal and over the top, especially like that running gag where every time he badass, like he walks away from something, he has that thing he's walking away from explode with a handheld detonator. Beep boom. It's not easy being mean. The thing is with this movie is that there's nothing really too special about it. It doesn't really have the heart that the quote unquote first Muppet movie had. Mostly in that the first movie really focused on the relationship between these characters. For this new one, it's mostly just gags, not a whole lot of development from them.
Hijinks.
Yeah, mostly just wacky hijinks, and I don't know, the hijinks doesn't really make sense, because in this movie they kind of treat the Muppets like idiots, because they can't see that this Constantine is so obviously not Kermit.
Do you think this would have worked better as maybe if they did a little show, that went on for a couple episodes, or as opposed to this movie?
I don't know, because the kind of material you see here, that kind of seems like stuff you would find in television. But yeah, there's not really that much to say about the movie other than that it's a pretty decent film with when the Muppets are still entertaining, and it's worth a recommendation. So 3 out of 5. The next on our list is RoboCop 2014. Now tell me you've at least seen the original RoboCop.
Many, many, many years ago. I do not remember a single thing about that movie, unfortunately.
Come on, you don't remember Red Foreman telling bitches to leave?
I don't. But then I saw a short clip of the original, and I saw Foreman, and I started cracking up. I did not know he was in that movie. I did not remember he was in that movie, and that just made my day.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me, Red Foreman. RoboCop, you better put that gun down, or else I'm gonna shove my foot up your ass.
Oh, I miss that show.
So yeah, RoboCop, new RoboCop. My biggest problem with RoboCop is that for the first half of the film, it really tries to do its own thing, where you still have Alex Murphy gets caught in, he's almost killed in the line of battle, or in the line of duty, in a less violent way, because it's a PG-13 film.
I have heard how he died. He actually died in the original, correct?
I think he was. I think he technically, he was legally dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, he died because he was shot to.
I saw that.
Yeah, his hand was blown up, everything. Here it's just poof, car explosion. But then Michael, the head of Omni Corporations, or Omni Consumer OCP, I think, the head of the OmniCorp is played by Batman. Michael Keaton. He's like, wait a minute, we want robots to. We have these robots policing the Middle East, and we want to bring robots as like policemen here in America, but America has bills against our robots, so let's have a cyborg instead. So they, with permission, they said, hey, we're gonna build your cop. We have the technology. We can make him faster, stronger than ever. With permission from his wife, they made Alex Murphy into RoboCop, and unlike the original RoboCop, where he has like no memory of his past life. This version of Alex Murphy does remember. He's still Alex Murphy, and he still interacts with his wife and kids. And those scenes I thought were really well done and well handled. And his reaction when he finds out just exactly what is left of his original body, that is just pretty haunting. Because you see, he's just a head, a hand, and a pair of lungs.
Question.
Yeah.
Does he still eat baby food?
Ooh, does he still eat baby food? No, because he does not have any. He doesn't have a stomach like in the original.
Okay.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. But then, like by the second half, they decide to go the route of let's just quickly forget about instead, because they established that there was a program that makes RoboCop think he's in control of his own actions when he's really not. So, unlike the first movie that dealt with RoboCop regaining his humanity, here I thought it was RoboCop regaining his free will, because he's under the assumption that he has free will when he actually doesn't. So I thought that was really interesting. But then at the last minute, he's like, no, let's turn him into a blank slate and have him regain his humanity again. Even though we just spent this whole half of the film focusing on developing this character. I don't know. And then by the end, it gets to a really kind of sad, well, to me anyways, a kind of generic CGI shootout between him and the Ed 209s. I don't think it was as interesting, definitely not as creative as the original film.
Or as the first half of the film?
Oh yeah, but in comparison, like, it's kind of hard because you should tell yourself, this is a new movie, what happened before happened, leave it in the past, it's like pointless to compare something to the original when this is trying to be its own movie. But the thing is, I don't know, it's something I like to call Zilla 98 syndrome, where you have a remake that's connected to something that is so big, like in this, with Godzilla or RoboCop. It's so big that its shadow will constantly loom over this new film, and that it's a shadow that the remake can never escape, because the original is so damn iconic. So I don't know, being such a huge fan of RoboCop, it's just I couldn't help but compare these two films. And yeah, even on its own, just by looking at the movie itself, the action is kind of generic in a way, where there's a lot of shaky cam shootouts, a lot of quick cuts and dark. There's like a shootout that's like in the dark, and there's like flashes, and you can barely see what's going on. The fights between him and the robot cops and the Ed 209s, they are well executed. Although, like I said, the fights themselves are nothing that like surprises you in this day and age. And that ending, final showdown between him and the villain, it's again nowhere near as creative as the original. And but yeah, it was what really did save this movie were the actors themselves. I can't remember the actor who played RoboCop, because I think he was a TV actor, but he did a really good job. What's his name? Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman was in the movie?
Yeah, he was the scientist who created RoboCop. He was the one that put him together. He's kind of like a modern day Frankenstein, in which he immediately regrets what he had created and he tries to seek redemption. He was awesome. Michael Keaton is awesome, also great. He has a ton of personality. I thought it was like, his character says, because in the beginning of the movie we have a RoboCop wearing like the classic black and silver armor, but then Michael Keaton says, how about we make it all black? I'm thinking, gee, what gave you that idea? Do, 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 do. And finally, there's Samuel L. Jackson. He's kind of like a news anchor.
He was in the movie too?
Yeah, he was
yeah, there he is.
As Pat Novak. He's kind of like plays this Bill O'Reilly type character where he's on the news, and he's like this really big time, like, not conservative. He's like this pro-military person. He's like, we should have robots here. Quit complaining, people.
I think he was in the trailers. I think I remember that now. Actually.
Yeah, and that brings me to another point where what made RoboCop so iconic and also made it stand out from the other sci-fi action movies of its time was the satire of American culture, and especially through the fake commercials. Like, I think it was like a Battleship parody called Nukem.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of critiques on the consumer, what would you call it, the capitalistic consumerism boom of the 1980s. The iconic "I'd buy that for $1" line. None of that is there, with the exception of Samuel L. Jackson's character, because it's still like a news program, kind of like, again, poking fun at like news personalities such as like Bill O'Reilly, who's like extremely biased, outlandish. He's constantly interrupting the people he's interviewing just so he can get his point across without giving the other person a time to react. And yeah, he is entertaining, but again, it's not as deep or as meaningful as like the large amounts of satire from the original. And finally, one last thing is like more of a nitpick is the RoboCop theme song. Now, I didn't expect the original RoboCop theme song to appear here, where it's like dun 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 dun, but they only use it twice. It used very awkwardly. It used it at the beginning with the title sequence, like RoboCop dun 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 dun. Oh, like yeah. Wait, it's over already? Oh. But then, like, you see the news report with Pat Novak's character, and he's announcing RoboCop to the world, and the theme song starts randomly playing again. Dun 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 dun. Wait, why do you show up now? And so then the movie was about to end. I was like, okay, so this is going to be like the original, where it's like, you hear the theme song, the movie's about to end. I fought the law and the law won. Like, what the...
Weirdest transition music.
Yeah. So, overall, RoboCop, it's a decent movie. Kind of a blah. Kind of like the story is pretty meh. But the actors do definitely give great performances, and it's gonna entertain you when you give it a shot. It's definitely not the original. I mean, if you're gonna pick between the original and the remake, definitely go for the original, only because it's a much more better written and much more creative film. But what you have here is a decent 3 out of 5 film. Now, what we have next is Captain America! Bam! America! America! Fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day! Captain America! Fuck yeah! What you gonna do when he comes for you? Yeah! Yes! Captain America! The Winter Soldier! The third, I believe, film to be made, Marvel Cinematic Universe film to be made post-Avengers.
I believe you're right, and I can actually contribute to this one, so thank you. I appreciate that.
So yeah, Captain America, he's still working for S.H.I.E.L.D. He questions if what they're doing is morally sound. Then, shit goes down, the Winter Soldier shows up, and Captain America realizes that there's some, there is a hidden force within the government and S.H.I.E.L.D. And so now he's been put on, the S.H.I.E.L.D. has their targets on Captain America. So he, along with the help of Nick Fury, Black Widow, and introducing the Falcon, all of them are going to work with each other to take down this new evil presence.
Along with a mysterious new enemy.
Yes, which is the aforementioned Winter Soldier, whose relationship to Captain America is much more deeper than most would think. Although, if you're a comic book fan, or you've watched the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, you probably already know who the Winter Soldier is. Yeah, so I want to start off with you. What were your thoughts on the movie?
All right, so it's been a while since we watched it, but I remember it was so action packed, and my initial reaction was, or my initial thoughts were, I didn't see the first movie, and I was afraid that might be detrimental to watching this movie, and it surprisingly wasn't. I picked it up. It takes place after Avengers, and it was a very fun freaking movie to watch. All those action scenes, all the drama, it was amazing.
Yeah, like when I saw the first Captain America, I loved that movie.
Did you?
Yeah, like mainly because like I have a pretty big not attachment. No, I'm not a big attachment per se, but I have a affinity for stories that take place in that World War II era, like 1940s, 50s era. Probably because due to my like love for film noir and that old school like sci-fi stories, I guess.
I feel that way in a similar way, but Captain America was just something that I was never attracted to the story of Captain America or the hero himself. I never really cared for him growing up. Even now, it wouldn't be something I'd go out of my way to even read on, as opposed to some other heroes.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. But the movie the first movie made me care about Captain America, and they really succeeded in making him an interesting character, being a man out of time, and that itself is brought to the forefront here, where the times have changed. Everything is kind of a lot more, lot less. Everything is less black and white as it seems. There's no, oh, we gotta beat the evil Nazis. It's here. It's more like we gotta. Here are these methods to protect people before something goes down. But in order to do that, it would require sacrificing their like freedom of choice and freedom of choice, and how far are you willing to go to protect people?
And I think we talked about this when we first saw the movie. One of the good things about this movie was it really built his leadership character.
Oh, definitely.
That will lead on to the next Avengers movie. But I feel like in the Avengers, and I know in partly because of the Avengers, they were all opposed to each other. They weren't exactly friends. Mm-hmm. But I feel even then, like the leadership role wasn't really filled by Captain America, which he is supposed to be the leader, correct?
Yeah, he is supposed to be the leader, but at this point, he was still like very early on. He
Exactly.
just got out of being frozen, and for the most part, it was like mostly like Nick Fury and Iron Man, who was the one like they were the ones who were mostly in charge of what was going on. It was like by the time the battle came. The big battle in New York came, Captain America was like, okay, this is where I know what to do here.
Yeah, so I expect with the next Avengers movie, I expect to see a little bit more out of Captain America with what has been brought to this movie. Like again, I feel like his leadership has been raised, his character has been strengthened. I like him a lot now because of this movie.
Oh, definitely. What I also really liked about this movie is that it's not just like mostly Captain America, but his supporting cast is amazing here. Absolutely brilliant. Each character got their own time to shine, and what I especially loved was the developing relationship between Captain America and Black Widow, where at the beginning they were mostly like they were just like coworkers. Work acquaintances, and by the end they get to grow closer to each other, not in a romantic way, but people who learn to trust one another. And it's very interesting when you consider when it is subtly shown what Black Widow herself has gone through during her times as being like, I believe, a Russian assassin, and eventually being this person who has so many secrets, both personal and non-personal.
Well, for me, I'm trying to remember the movie now, but I wasn't too attached to Black Widow. Mm-hmm. She did seem like a fairly good character, but nothing about her really stood out. She was a little more. I don't want to contradict myself, but she was a little spunky here and there. I really like as much as he was missing for a majority of the movie. After a while, I really liked Nick Fury's scenes. Those are so action packed, and again, he was missing for a big chunk of the movie, but. The interactions he had with the characters were fantastic.
Yeah, he definitely has a very commanding presence.
Of course, it's Nick. I can't even say necessarily it's Nick Fury. It's Samuel L. Jackson. He brings it. I love that.
Yeah. It was. Do you remember that scene with the elevator where Captain America and Nick Fury are just talking to each other, and Nick Fury shares a story about either his uncle or his grandpa, and how his grandpa he grew to distrust the people around him, and that's why Nick Fury explains, like, that's why I have trouble trusting people.
Yeah, yeah. God, it brings out a lot of his character, and it's even mentioned later on. You know, how much more so with his involvement of what's the his there's someone that Nick Fury answers to, who he had a relation with back when they were younger.
I can't remember his name, but or the actor who played him, but he was also very he was also pleasant to watch.
I think it was let me see. I think it was Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce.
Yeah, I think that might be him.
Yeah, and so there's a little history between him and Nick Fury, and we do learning the past of Nick Fury is very interesting. You get to know why he is who he is. And I like that, and I was there's a lot in that movie that really questions what's going to happen to in the future, and I'm glad he's still going to be a part of it.
Oh, definitely. So to quickly wrap things up. Amazing movie, amazing spy thriller, amazing superhero movie, amazing sci-fi adventure. Possibly the best Marvel film, in my opinion, since the first Iron Man. So yeah, strangely enough, interestingly enough, another 5 out of 5 for me.
You know, when we saw the movie, I think when we talked about this at that point too, and I was really conflicted because I really liked the movie, and I wasn't sure if it was because I had just seen it and I hadn't had time to sit down and let it settle. But even now, I feel like it's a freaking amazing movie. I realized we didn't talk about too much about the Winter Soldier, but talking about him reveals a lot of information.
Right.
So with that, I would have to agree with you. It is a 5 out of 5 worth movie. Definitely a lot more than Iron Man 3 was.
Oh yeah. Like, I really take back that 5 out of 5 I gave to that movie.
Yeah. So in retrospect, I'm kind of glad that we had a little chance to think about it a little more. While it might have been a hiatus, it really gave us a chance to think about does this film really deserve what we're giving it? And I think so. I think it really
Definitely.
was. Yeah.
What's very even interesting was that, like, when the movie came out, I took my mother to see Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and she's like, really, before, she was not like into like superhero or sci-fi or adventure movies. She preferred movies more based on reality. And after seeing that movie, she was like, "Wow!" And this was the movie that got her into superhero movies again and sci-fi and adventure and stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie was so powerful it made someone who couldn't care less about superheroes into a fan. And now she's all interested in seeing all the previous Avenger-related movies. Alright, so next up is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the sequel to the 2012 reboot, The Amazing Spider-Man. And, let's see, did you see Amazing Spider-Man 1?
I actually did.
Oh, wow! Check it out! Pete actually saw the first installment of a series.
I know, it's one of the few movies that I've actually seen, the first one, so I will have to say a lot about this.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to go into a little retrospective of what we thought about the original? You reviewed it, didn't you?
Yeah, I reviewed it with Caesar, a friend of ours. Yeah, to restate what I thought, this movie really, the first movie really surprised me in how it handled the reboot. Again, low expectations going in, but I really found myself enjoying the movie more and more. I love I love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I love his chemistry with Gwen Stacy. I mean, played by, I believe, Emma Stone. Emma Stone, yeah, Emma Stone. I almost said Emma Watson for a minute there.
That's Hermione.
Yes, I know. The only real part that really bothered me was the fact that they brought up the origin of. They go like there's this like subplot about what really happened to Peter Parker's parents, which got quickly dropped by the end of the first act, and there were a lot of scenes in this movie in the marketing that did not make into the final film, and that also seemed to be related to the parents subplot. And also the villain, the Lizard, wasn't as good as any of the villains from the first 3 movies, I believe.
I think that's what was my biggest problem with the movie too. The Lizard itself. Going to this movie, I guess I'd have to say I was a little pessimistic. I did grow up with the original with movies that came out before it, and I feel like I had a hard time deciding that these movies were better, or that the new movies were better. Because by all means, the reboot, I feel like it is a better movie, but deep inside, and this is what I thought before. I think my opinion on that is changing now after seeing Spider-Man 2, but I feel like the reboot, at least the original one, was a superior film compared to the original Spider-Man movie. I at first, like I said, I didn't like what's the one's name again?
The Lizard?
The Lizard, yeah, I don't know why I forgot that. I was gonna say Reptile from Mortal Kombat. Yeah, yeah. For some reason, I just couldn't get on the Lizard. There was that chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. That was her, right?
Yes.
And here's the biggest thing, though. I've only seen that movie once. I feel now, feeling how I feel about the movies themselves. If I go back and watch the movie itself, I might feel a little stronger towards it. But that's movie 1. But we're talking about movie 2.
2. So yeah, movie 2 it takes. Oh yeah, just one last thing. Dennis Leary as I believe Captain Stacy. He was awesome. So yeah, it's a new movie. Both Peter and Gwen, they graduate high school. They're trying to move on with their lives, but they don't know whether or not they should be together because of the promise that Peter made with Captain Stacy, her father. And while they're trying to get their lives sorted out, a Spider-Man fanboy by the name of Max Dillon, played by Jamie Foxx, he gets electrocuted and bit by a radioactive electric eel. No, he wasn't. Well, he was bitten by an electric eel, but I guess it was a genetically altered eel. Woo! And gets turned science. Through the magic of pseudoscience, he well, that's a phrase I should go on a t-shirt. The magic of pseudoscience. He gets turned into Electro, or as I like to call Super Smurf.
Yes, I like that.
Or Dr. Manhattan Light,
that works
which is not as entertaining as Super Smurf. But at the same time, you've got this subplot going on with Harry Osborn.
The introduction.
The introduction, the establishment, and the transformation all in one movie, which we'll discuss about.
Yes, please.
About Harry Osborn learning to getting reacquainted with Peter, and eventually turning into his enemy as the Green Goblin, all in one movie. And then there's still the whole subplot with the parents that got dropped from the first movie, but then picked up here, which
was finalized,
I guess, but it really didn't do anything other than it revealed something we already knew, that Oscorp was evil.
And apparently the tagline for this movie apparently is "No More Secrets."
And remember the tagline from the first movie, "The Untold Story."
So
the untold story is, they were killed by Oscorp. Dun dun dun! And Oscorp was evil
all along. Who'da thunk?
And then there's the Rhino, which was...
Oh, the Rhino's my favorite character. He's so involved in this movie.
I know, he was so well developed.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see him again.
But yeah, like, Paul Giamatti play the Rhino, and might as well just get this out of the way. He's only in there for the beginning and the end. That fight you see between Spider-Man and the Rhino in the trailers, that last shot right there is the last shot of the movie. That's it. The last minute of the movie is that minute of fighting from the trailer.
I thought we were gonna get something amazing. I thought the Rhino was gonna be a little more involved. Just maybe a minor villain, it's putting more villains into this movie.
Yeah, just make him like the muscle behind, but in this case, the Electro ended up becoming the muscle.
Yeah, no, in this case, he was literally, I'm a bad guy. I'm a super bad guy. Goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, he was entertaining, and like Paul Giamatti looked like he was having a lot of fun going over the top, like, ha ha ha! I am the Rhino. I will destroy you. Yeah. As far as like the design for the Rhino go, I didn't really like it. It kind of looked like Humpty Dumpty with a giant rhino head.
You know, that Rhino, the mechanized suits, that's from Ultimate Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, in Ultimate Spider-Man, the Rhino was a suit rather than a genetically like a mutated like body with a suit of armor.
I gotta say, I think I've only seen the mutated version. I don't think so. When I first saw the robot, I was a little thrown off by it. Actually,
just picture like Rhinox from Beast Wars, but like gray and silver.
There you go.
So yeah, what were your immediate thoughts? What were your immediate thoughts for Amazing Spider-Man 2?
My immediate thoughts are my complaints, because I have a lot of complaints.
Okay, let's go with the complaints. They're more entertaining.
Okay. They went... I don't know if this is just a personal thing, or I don't know how many people agree with this, but I feel like they went so out of their way not to make Peter Parker a stereotype. Not to make him a stereotype. And they choose Electrode, and they make him the nerdiest freaking stereotype I've ever seen in the history of my life!
He's like, what happened if what if Steve Urkel grew up and still but just made him like a sad, pathetic loser?
Yes! Oh my gosh. I don't know what Electrode is like in the comics, but I'm almost 99% sure it's nothing like this. For someone who made... Peter Parker, who's usually I think of him as a nerdy character. Mm-hmm. They went out of their way to make him not a nerdy character, but a confident and a smart, well-known young lad. Then they make Electro the biggest nerd. Oh!
He's like, hey, Spider-Man, I'm here. Today. It's my birthday. Oh, you shouldn't have given me this cake. What's that, Spider-Man? Of course, I'll be your best friend. Sure.
Oh, man, that is.
Also, like, what's with the cartoonish comb-over? I thought, like, those were done now.
That's what I'm saying. It was so overdone. What's the stereotype? It was beyond a nerdy stereotype. Oh my. Okay. That's one of the things I had a gush on.
So, what did you thought of at least like Jamie Foxx's Electro?
I wasn't too the transformation between Max and Electrode. Mm-hmm. He was just a puppet. That's all he was, and I mean
there was like potential for an interesting character. I mean, especially during that first fight in like what's it called, Times Square.
You know what? That was handled very well for to an extent. Thanks to the Spider-Man part of it. Mm-hmm. I really dug that. I don't know if I've ever seen a scene like that in a specific movie so far, mm-hmm. where like someone will the hero will stop what he's doing, like realize this man is a victim, and somewhat try to help him out.
Yeah, I love that. He's like, hey man, I know what you're going through. I went through the same thing. Let's just talk about it.
He was sympathetic, and I don't think we've seen that to an extent in other movies, and I really like that, and I really felt like that was part of like Peter Parker. That's Spider-Man. That really makes him who he is.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, the best part about this movie is Spider-Man himself. I feel like now that with the first movie out of the way, like Andrew Garfield got out of that like awkwardness he had with Spider-Man, he's now in it. He's like in full control. He is confident. This truly is the definitive Spider-Man. Like during the opening where he's like wisecracking, making jokes, making like a jackass out of himself just to piss off the Rhino. That was like, yes, that is Spider-Man right there.
Yes and no. I have to add to that too. In that scene, Spider-Man is way too cocky, and you see the destruction of what's going on because Spider-Man's just having some fun.
Okay, sure, that is true, but that is Spider-Man. That's what he does.
I get it, but still, that part did throw me off in the loop when I was watching. I was like, wait a minute, what's happening to everyone around you, man? You gotta take care of them too.
And like, yeah, he's still throughout the movie. He's very jokey. Has a lot of really funny lines and funny moments, especially like that moment where he's like helping out the fireman douse Electro, and he's wearing like this fireman helmet. Yeah. Like, Spidey. Yeah. And another, like, the best thing about the movie is the relationship between him and Gwen Stacy. Yeah, and Yeah, a lot of people complain like, oh, they're together, they're not together, they're together, they're not together. I was like, these are young people who they love each other very much, and these are people who are very confused. They want to be together, but they can't. They know that like common sense is they're being together would be too dangerous for either of them. But both of them are willing to risk it, but at the same time don't. It's a very complicated situation, so I can understand why they would jump back and forth all the time.
Now, the original did that too. Correct me if I'm wrong. The original did that too with Mary Jane.
I mean, the original movies.
Yeah, the original movies.
Yeah, they did that, like...
But in a horrendous way.
Yeah, especially with the third movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not telling you about my problems, but I'm expecting you to understand what I'm going through.
Yeah, no, again, I love the relationship they have. And, I hear that they're dating in real life, and I wonder if that has anything to do with their charisma and how they are in the movie together.
Mm-hmm.
But they are really good. I think it's improved from the first one, and it's there.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because I feel like a majority of the movie is we don't really. Did we see Spider-Man a lot in this movie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. And as a side note, for once we actually have a Spider-Man who keeps his damn mask on all the time.
I wasn't sure. Like I said, it's been a while, but still, I felt like there was a very good balance of Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Oh, definitely. Now let's talk about what we both believe is the weakest part of the movie, Harry Osborn.
I will say this now, and I'll say it again. They have no chemistry. The actors I don't think they had any chemistry. I get there's going to be some awkwardness for friends that haven't seen each other for a long time, and even as someone from as strict as Harry, what Harry's life is portrayed as. But there was no chemistry between the actors. I did not care for the relationship. I don't know. That was my biggest problem with that in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess that mostly stems from the fact that they have so much time. They have trying to cram in as much story and plot as they can into this one movie, and again trying to establish Harry Osborn as the former friend, and trying to show them reconnecting, and then throw in a disease subplot, and then now because of that disease subplot they're no longer friends, and then have him as the Green Goblin. It's so. It feels so rushed and sloppy, and yeah, I do have my. It is hard because he was. I don't think he was ever mentioned in the first movie.
I don't think
so.
Either.
It's just like, oh hey, I've showed up. I've been your friend this whole time since we were kids.
But it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, especially when I don't know, he was gone for 9 years. So if they're 18, so they were 9 years old, and I guess you were a very different person from when you were 9.
I get that, but I felt like no genuine emotions coming from from the two of them. They were once friends. Even after the part where haha, just kidding, I was messing with you. We're cool. It was still very awkward seeing them together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I said, that I felt like that Harry and Peter did not have any charisma together.
I see. I think they had some charisma, but I blame this the story. This story definitely tries way too hard to set up for a Sinister Six sequel. It spends more time trying to develop an overarching Spider-Man cinematic universe like the Avengers, rather than actually focusing on the movie the story that it has right now. And it does, yeah. Trying to set up for a future movie really gets in the way with the present movie. And the thing is, I've always made this comparison where The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is two really nice cars smashed together thinking that you're going to make one super cool car. Instead, you have one car that's totally wrecked, another car that's also wrecked, but it's at least drivable. And the drivable car, that's representing the plot with Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy, and to an extent Electro, and the other half being all that Sinister Six and Green Goblin stuff.
Oh man, and with Harry's character, I think we also forgot to mention how he's basically dethroned from his own company.
Yeah, that's another subplot again. There's so many subplots in this movie. Oh, and don't forget the Aunt May subplots.
Gosh.
I mean, that itself was handled decently, but still, that's like too much. Is like when is enough going to be enough for Sony Pictures?
And I know that's one of the most common complaints in terms of the movie itself. You know, too many subplots, too many subplots. I've seen a couple of things here and there, stating the subplots, and it really is that it really is damning. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
I guess one last thing is like the marketing for this film. Now, the thing is, I don't really want to make this a mark against the film because the marketing team is a very separate entity from the filmmakers. Because once the filmmakers are done shooting all their scenes, they give their footage to the marketing department, and they do whatever Sony tells them to, though I guess, and just make a trailer that may or may not reflect the quality of the movie itself. And for the trailers, there was a lot of scenes in the trailers that were not present in the film, such as that scene where Harry Osborn is talking to Norman Osborn, and Harry Osborn asks his father about Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I remember that now.
You'd think that they're going to team up against Spider-Man, but of course they're not, because Peter Parker isn't even part of the equation.
At that point, he doesn't even know about Peter. I think the father is, if I can say, is dead before he even knows Peter is Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. And then there's another part where Peter's like, why has Osborn been surveilling me? Isn't that the question? Or isn't that like the question?
It was also important in the trailer, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was also in the trailer when there's never a scene where that like surveillance thing and it seemed making out or Harry Osborn out to be like the bad guy, like secretly plotting against Peter.
And even then, when it isn't, when part of the trailer is in the movie, it only lasts like 2 minutes.
Yeah, and what's even weird is that those scenes were actually filmed. So were they filmed for the sake of just being in the trailer?
Well, could it have been? Because I feel like we do see those scenes. However, we get like a different audio or a different message. Could it have been just something as simple as an edit?
I don't know, but then again, maybe there was like a one version of the movie trying to make it like a conspiracy, but maybe they decided to rewrite the film and make another series of changes and reshoots.
Could be that. We have our own little conspiracy.
And one last thing, nitpick, but it's like a really big one for me. That opening scene with Richard Parker on the plane, and he has a laptop with him, and it's a modern day like Sony brand laptop. What was it called? What's it called? A Vizio?
Vizio or something like that?
Yeah, and like the movie, it's clear that this movie takes place in 2014 because when Norman Osborn dies, spoiler alert, there's like 1960 something to 2014. So they're like, okay, it takes place 2014. So
was it really a Sony computer in the opening?
Yeah, it was a present day Sony computer in a flashback sequence that most likely took place in like 1999.
I'm trying to remember, and I can't believe I didn't catch that because obviously
the logo is right there.
We see his old subway lab. I'm not trying to give stuff away, and he has a freaking 80s, 90s computer, or 60s, I don't know what, I forget what, I don't know.
I don't know, like Windows 90, whatever, Windows 98 or...
Before Windows, I don't know. Yeah, so, really? I actually can't remember.
Yeah, the logo was right there, because, with laptops and movies, they always have to show you that Apple logo or whatever,
Sony.
Dell or Sony, whatever.
Sony phones too, by the way, Sony Xperias.
Or, Jesus Christ, like, the worst form of advertising ever that really just immediately takes you out of the film.
I don't know, I still think Man of Steel had worse advertising.
Fighting in the middle of a IHOP. Overall thoughts now. Final thoughts and ratings for Spider-Man.
Final thoughts. Honestly, I had a good time with the movie. It wasn't the best. Surprisingly, I had a lot of fun with it though.
I can definitely say that too.
And I think it's because of Spider-Man and because of Gwen Stacy too. I think the Spider-Man as the character himself really brings forth the fun in this movie. And with someone else playing Spider-Man, if it wasn't for Andrew Garfield or the direction of how they made Spider-Man act or do, I think this would have been a very a much worse movie. So I'd give it a 3 out of 5. Like I said, it was a decent movie. I can only hope that they make something better, much better.
And same for me too. 3 out of 5. You couldn't said it any better myself. And so our next movie is X-Men Days of Future Past, which is the latest in the long line of X-Men movies that we pretty much talked about back when we reviewed the Wolverine. And it's pretty much like a follow-up what happened at the end of the Wolverine. Only now you've got Bryan Singer, the director of the first 2 X-Men movies, back in the director's chair, pretty much trying to fix up everything that everyone else did while still building on the ideas introduced in in First Class, yeah, X-Men First Class. And so here, it's an adaptation of what many people consider to be one of the best, if not the best, X-Men story ever made, Days of Future Past by Chris Claremont, where you have the future where everything's run by these giant robots called the Sentinels. They're wiping out humankind, and they're also wiping out any human that has the potential of having mutant descendants. And so you have the X-Men. They decide to send Wolverine back to the past in a very complicated, absurd way in order to have him prevent younger Mystique from the First Class era, played by Jennifer Lawrence, to stop her from killing the person, Boulevard Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, to stop her from killing him, because his death would have eventually led to the events of the giant robots taking over the world. And to do that, he has to get the help of both young Professor X and young Magneto, played once again by their respective actors from First Class.
Yeah, and one thing I like about this movie is, for the first time in a while, actually, I feel like I know most of these actors, and I don't have to go into a little book or a little thing and find each of the actors' name. Like, we know who these people are. They've been through us throughout the whole ride. Aside from the First Class crew, we've been with these actors for the majority of the ride.
Mm-hmm. And although it's kind of funny that a lot of the returning actors, they don't really have a lot to do. Especially Halle Berry as Storm. I mean, they have their lines, they have their moments, their time to shine. But really, this is more of a First Class sequel than it is an X-Men trilogy sequel. Really, it's more like I don't know. I see it as a way of bridging the gap between the two.
Yeah, I can see that.
While still also, in a way, repairing the damage done by Bryan Singer and who we know, the people behind the X-Men Origins Wolverine.
And oh boy, did they repair what they did.
Oh yes, they did. It was pretty much one big middle finger, especially that ending, man. Although it's kind of funny how, because they're doing a lot of time traveling stuff, they're actually trying to rewrite history, causing certain events not to happen in the end of the movie, without giving too much spoiler. And it's kind of interesting how he not only tries to Bryan Singer, when he's directing this movie, he's now just trying to change the stuff that happened in other movies that he didn't direct, but he's also changing stuff that happened in his movies as well, which I find kind of commendable, that he's willing to, sacrifice his own work in order to fix the mistakes, the horrors, the mistakes of others.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's. It's kind of a ballsy move to do what he did.
Yeah, I mean,
can we say what this means for the franchise?
Sure.
Okay, well, basically this means total reboot. After the first movie, after the second movie, after the third movie, after Wolverine, after X-Men Origins. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, X-Men Origins.
After X-Men Origins, it's all kaput. It's all gone. We're all starting on a clean slate.
Starting with First Class.
Yeah, that's the only event that actually happened, I think, technically.
Yeah, and the events that happened during the 70s era of the 70s section of X-Men First Days of Future Past.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing that runs through my head is what events have transpired since this reboot.
Well, if you notice at the very end of the movie, there is a good indication that the majority of stuff from the first 2 X-Men movies did pretty much happened. You still have Professor X, you still have the 2000s era of X-Men characters still there by the end.
Do you think that's that's what's gonna happen? And we're like, as much as we want to say they rebooted the whole thing, do you think it's essentially gonna start off like as if the second one had just ended?
Oh, I'd probably say it starts with where the first one just ended. Now onto the actual. Well, it's kind of funny how the Wolverine, a movie that you and I just watched last year, is already like out of continuity now.
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
Yeah,
No problem. Just gone. It's gone. Whatever.
pretty weird.
Okay.
Although
Well.
I don't say, I wouldn't think that I know a lot of people. I understand there are people who are upset that the first two X-Men movies are out of continuity now, but I wouldn't look at it that way. I would say that without those movies, all those movies leading up to Days of Future Past, we wouldn't have Days of Future Past.
Right.
So they still play a vital role in setting up this new continuity.
We still have the movies. I mean, it's not like we can't go back and enjoy them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But that just means we have more space for new things. Things maybe that weren't written correctly, can be rewritten, redone.
Totally. Now onto the actual movie itself.
Little tangent.
Yeah, it's God damn, this is a great movie.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of action, a lot of emotion in the movie, and I think it really shone through.
Definitely, especially everything concerning Professor X and Mystique. Because one of my biggest problems with X-Men First Class is that even though they established that these two characters had a very strong relationship, almost like a brother and son, not brother and son,
brother and sister,
almost like a brother and sister relationship. At the end of the movie, Mystique just up and leaves him while he was paralyzed to go with Magneto, and here they're like I was like, wait, what happened there? But here they revisit that. They're like, hey man, this woman I've known since I was a little kid left me. I am now an emotional wreck, and I'm using a drug to help me cope with this situation.
Now, was it your problem that Xavier's reaction, was it what you would have expected, or was it her action?
It was both, really.
I thought her action, it was kind of mean and jerkish, but I feel like they had a good reason for her to leave his side.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Although I feel like maybe the reason why they did that was just to say, okay, so in these movies she's a bad guy. Let's just do what we can. We don't know if we're going to get a sequel or not, so let's just have her become a bad guy by the end.
Fair point.
And yeah, Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, she is amazing. She's like, she really knows how to bring that level of sympathy with her. I mean, she's kind of like, she's kind of like in between. She's not like Professor X, who wants to have total peace between humans and mutants. We learn that she is not like Magneto, who's like, everyone here all these humans need to die in order to make room for us.
She's very impressionable. She's getting answers from both sides, and it's basically her trying to find out what she's gonna do, kind of in a sense.
And in a way, she's fighting for the mutants, but isn't going so far as to kill innocent people who cross her path. And this leads to her target that she's going after, Boulevard Trask, played by Peter Dinklage. It's really interesting that they hired an actor who is. Let's see. It's always weird when you have looking for the politically correct term.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I think the politically correct term is little people or little person, which I just find incredibly demeaning. It's like, I know dwarfism is like a whole other thing, but when you think about it, dwarves are pretty badass. You think of Gimli from the Lord of the Rings movies.
That's all I get what you mean. I get what you mean, but you're not saying it in a negative connotation. You're saying you're trying to be as polite as possible, and you're putting it in a, go on.
But just to be on the safe side, little person. Peter Dinklage, he is a little person who has gotten a lot of fame in recent years, and he's especially gotten more popular ever since his role in Game of Thrones. And I find it a really very fascinating, not fascinating, but really. I guess I would say fascinating, because you have an actor who is lacking in height playing, and whenever you have I think in the past, whenever you have an actor who is a short person in a movie, his height is usually played up for laughs, or they bring attention to the fact that he has a lack of height. But here they don't really do that at all.
You know, now that you mention that, I'm thinking about that right now, and I'm wondering if that's almost like a missed opportunity in a sense. Not played for jokes, but played for like what's the term, derogatory in a sense. You know, he's a little person. You know, and people weren't that nice to people with with deficiencies. I don't or problems back then. I don't know how people were in the '70s. But I figure maybe that's something that they could have worked in there. I don't know. I'm just thinking now, and they specifically chose him as a little person to play. I believe in the comics and the show, he was just a regular scientist.
Right,
I feel,
right.
and if they went out of the way to add him, maybe they could have added something a little more to his character. I don't know. That's just a thought. After this talking, that just came to me right now.
Because I think the reason why they picked him was because he's obviously a great actor. But however, I think his height does play a part in this because his motivation for creating the Sentinels is that he is afraid of the human race becoming obsolete due to the appearance of the mutants. But he's trying to use the Sentinels, and anyway, he's trying to learn as much as he can from the mutants because he's afraid. Like I said, he wants humanity to catch up and still be just as good as the mutants, just like how he is, being a short person, doing all he can to become the most intelligent person on the planet, to find new discoveries. He's trying to become a important and useful person that society can benefit from. He's trying to contribute to society so that he himself can still remain useful and important.
And not just seen as another small person.
Exactly. So I think there's really strong parallels between his fear of humans becoming obsolete and he himself becoming obsolete due to being genetically inferior. In his mind, I'm theorizing to regular people, to human beings.
You think that's why he's striving for what he's doing?
Yeah, definitely. He and I think that just adds so much character to him. And as for Professor X, who is the third big important part of the story, is that it's kind of funny. Well, not funny, but it's very interesting to see this side of Professor X, because we always see him as the calm, cool, collected man who has all the answers. Here, he does not have all the answers. He is at his lowest point.
He's broken.
He's broke. He's a broken man. He's trying to just shut out all the voices in his head. He's trying to seclude himself, and just to see him fall so badly, you want to see him rise up, and it's just all that more satisfying.
Yeah, and especially since we've seen how many movies have we seen him as Professor Xavier, as this respectable adult who only cares for others and who's trying to help others, and now you see he himself as a young adult. Even in First Class, he was somewhat like that.
Yeah.
But now, you can't help but feel sympathy for him, like as a jerk and as rude as he can be, you still sympathize with him because you know what kind of person he is, and you know what kind of person he's gonna grow up to be.
And just that one scene where he interacts with Patrick Stewart as older Xavier was just one of the most awesome moments I've seen this year.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And it's interesting that they chose the Wolverine to go to the past. At first, I thought to myself, "Oh, really? They're going to pick Wolverine and not Kitty Pryde? Oh boy, this is going to be another movie focusing on Wolverine." But it really wasn't. He was just more of a plot device, and the reason why they sent him instead of Kitty Pryde was not because they wanted to pick. I think this was from the director's own words. They chose Wolverine not because they wanted to have another movie because he's the Wolverine, but because
makes sense.
It makes sense because of the timeline that they established. They really wanted to go back to the 60s/70s era, and Wolverine was pretty much the only one who was there in that era who wasn't like either a baby or a sperm cell.
Yeah.
And he does his part really well. He doesn't. I think Hugh Jackman. He doesn't really break new ground here. I mean, he's still awesome as Wolverine, and
he's definitely aging.
He's definitely aging. Yeah. Although, yeah, he does play his part really well, and while it's nothing new, it's still enjoyable, and his lines are really, really funny, especially when he gets to, there are those comedic moments.
Yeah. And back come the bone claws.
The bone claws, yeah. To be honest, I never really was a fan of the bone claws. It's just that they don't. It looks like they do less damage.
I don't think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
You see those bone claws and they just feel very inferior. It's like, man,
these things can break off. You know,
no.
Yeah, you can stab someone, I guess, but how strong is bone really? I mean,
I don't know. Bones are pretty strong, but still,
but
that's
still,
besides the point.
They can't. I don't see him slicing through concrete and metal, but I guess maybe it was some sort of either they chose that, either because it made sense because this takes place before Weapon X, or they said, "Oh, okay, these metal claws, they're obviously going to rip through the Sentinels like nothing, so we want to do something to make him, weaker to add drama to the story."
That would have been a fair point, but you just mentioned Sentinels, and I kind of want to talk about the Sentinels.
Oh, okay. Although I just want to say how in The Wolverine, he, spoiler alert, lost his metal claws by the end of The Wolverine and had bone claws. So now we cut to the future. He has metal claws again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, did Magneto do some, wibbly-wobbly mutant magic metal ability to give him his metal skeleton back?
I think there's a lot of stuff still not explained. I mean, I think for the biggest thing is still don't think we know how Xavier is back in the first place.
Oh, actually, there was in X-Men. I missed this the first time I saw X-Men: The Last Stand, the third movie. How they were kind of hinted that Professor Xavier transferred his consciousness into another body, and we see that body. It was like a comatose body, like a brain-dead body, and we see that body move around, but we never see its face. And according to the commentary of that movie, it was written in the original script that body that Xavier took over was his twin brother.
Oh,
yeah. However, the director stated in a recent interview that was promoting this movie, stated that while they couldn't come up with an idea, he had in his mind an idea that perhaps with Xavier in this new body, he may have found some mutants to help him, give him super plastic surgery to give himself that older ability. How he lost his legs again, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, at least we have that to go off. I that was always something that was stuck in my mind. But again, we're getting besides the point.
But that does remind me of something. There was another weird plot hole sort of thing where with Kitty Pryde, she was a character who has the ability to phase through objects. However, in this movie, she gains another ability to send people's consciousness back to an earlier point in time, so that the future consciousness is now in charge of the past body. And this was never established in any other comics or cartoons or movie before. So I'm wondering, how did her power suddenly mature to the point where not only can she bend space, but now she can bend... No, not only can she bend, three-dimensional space, but now she can bend time.
Yeah, I have no idea. And I do know, after watching the animated adaptation of it, is the way they went back to the past was through some sort of machine, and not through a mutant power. So,
I think that's sort of how it was done in the comics, because in the comics, I think Kitty Pryde, she sent her future consciousness back into her old, younger body.
So we're gonna have to read some comics.
Yeah. They could have just easily have built a machine or something, but I don't know. Maybe they really liked Ellen Page and they wanted to give her something to do in the movie.
Speaking of, other characters too, then you also have to talk about Bishop, because, I guess in that sense, wasn't he an important character in the original?
Yeah, I think he was a character that was established in X-Men Days of Future Past, the comic, and he has been quite popular with X-Men fans ever since. And he is one of several new mutants that were introduced for the future, apocalyptic continuity with the Sentinels, and he does his job good. I think it was Link, Warpath, and Bishop.
Was it Link or was it Blink?
I'm pretty sure it was. I think it was Link, because she can throw. She pretty much has the abilities of the portal gun from the Portal games.
Yeah, I loved her ability, by the way. I thought how she maneuvered and how she moved was
Yeah.
awesome.
Warpath, he has he doesn't really have very noticeable powers. I guess he just has like very strong perception skills because he's able to sense danger from far away. But other than
he
that,
was like the guy with the mask, right?
yeah, kind of has like that weird like raccoon,
Yeah, okay.
like mask looking thing, and he has those knives. And other than that, he's just like super like peak of perfection, Batman levels or Captain America levels of of physical abilities. And then there's Bishop, who can convert energy, or he can absorb energy and convert it into ammo for his gun.
Kind of reminded me of Shaw.
Shaw. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's what he could do. Yeah, the new characters are pretty good. And speaking of all the new characters, Quicksilver.
You know, I liked his involvement in the movie. I kind of wish we would have seen more of him.
Yeah, definitely wish we saw more of him.
I mean, we see him again later on, and for one quick short scene. But you know, I do hope that they bring him back. And I the question still is, who's gonna have the better Quicksilver?
Oh yeah, because we still have Aaron Taylor Johnson playing Quicksilver for Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like at first, I was like, okay, Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's got this down. And I was like, this Quicksilver, he's gonna suck. Look at him, he looks lame, and like, oh, damn, dude's awesome.
He was enjoyable. And we had that little joke,
Yeah, especially alluding to the identity of his father.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, it was it's a nice little fan service there.
Yeah. Definitely my favorite of the new characters.
Now. I realize I feel like we're kind of a little all over the place with this review, but I do want to mention, and it's not much of a spoiler because I mean what happens kind of happens but doesn't happen. Seeing the characters die in the beginning,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, some of those deaths just broke my heart. Oh, they were so brutal. And this goes back to the Sentinels, so we still got to talk about that.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, it was brutal. Super brutal.
And the fact that they were able to get away with this sort of violence in a PG-13 movie, just like, there's no blood, but it's still apparent how these characters die. I mean, we have one of the Sentinels smashing Iceman's head.
No, it wasn't. Was it Iceman?
Yeah, it was Iceman.
Oh, that's right, it was.
It's ice, so it's not that violent.
And what was the Full Metal guy? What was his name?
Colossus.
Colossus. Seeing
No,
him,
dude,
he got
yes.
torn apart.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh, but he's metal, so it's not that violent.
or watching the second time, Iceman.
Yeah.
I was the second time I died, so he's just being burned to death. Oh man, it was brutal. That got to me.
Yeah, it's easily without a doubt, the actions in the scenes in this movie were, incredibly imaginative. The best probably we've seen in any X-Men movie.
Oh yeah,
I would go so far as to say. And so now that leads us to talk about, I guess, the final thing of Days of Future Past, the Sentinels themselves.
Okay, I just want to do a quick thing here, but I was a little surprised by the Sentinels in the beginning. I'm like, because as a kid, I remember watching the show.
Right.
I remember them being big, purple, evil monsters. I remember playing the video game on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I bet you a lot of you played as Sentinel himself in Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
There you go, exactly.
Rocket Punch.
Exactly. So when I saw these Sentinels, I'm like, what the heck are these guys? Like, these are not the Sentinels I know. But damn, were they intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Like, I first saw the 70 Sentinels. I was like, you know what? They're a lot smaller than I'm used to seeing them, but I can totally get behind that. And those look like Sentinels to me. They look awesome. They have that cool retro purple look.
They look pretty cool.
Yeah, and then when I saw the Future Sentinels on Empire magazine, I was like, oh, really? They're just all skinny and black? Yeah, that looks lame. That doesn't look cool. And then, the execution was so well handled. Like, these Sentinels can analyze whatever power a mutant has and quickly come up with a way to adapt to it, and then bam, retaliate.
It makes sense too. I really like how they patch it all together. They were these big, gigantic machines that failed, or that were they had to change them, and they made them to these tiny, more compact. And just seeing that seeing them drop how many they dropped.
Mm-hmm. They're especially creepy, They have that very intimidating factor. They're just these soulless, burning eyes with his black body. Almost they're like the embodiment of like the Grim Reaper of death itself. And especially when you see that scene of all those sentinels just climbing up that
Oh
mountain.
yeah, jeez. And that final stand, by the way, was pretty gosh darn epic and really emotional between and especially the dialogue between Magneto and Xavier. That's what am I thinking here?
But just everything just comes up to a very emotional conclusion.
Yeah, but I mean, there's such a strong link between. I don't know why I'm blanking on their names. I just talked about this earlier. How we all know all their names.
Yeah.
But Magneto, he's played by
Are you talking about old Magneto or young
old
Magneto?
Magneto.
Oh, I know it's Gandalf.
Yeah, exactly. And for some reason, right now, it's escaping.
Ian McKellen?
Ian McKellen.
Oh, Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen and
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, thank you. Just seeing them together, that final dialogue just it got to me. It was really
All those years we spent fighting, Charles.
it was really good, and I still like the relationship that Charles and Eric have in their younger years, as violent as it turns.
And Michael Fassbender, fantastic villain.
Yeah.
I really don't want to talk too much about Fassbender, other than that he is the kind of villain who will, like, if you are in his way, he is like ready to take you down.
He doesn't care what the loss is. If it's for his cause, it's enough reason. And that's a badass villain right there. Even if it's something you care about. You know what? There's a greater cause. I'm sorry. That's a good villain.
So now on to final ratings. Considering that we both gave Captain America: The Winter Soldier a 5 out of 5, how does this stack up against that movie? Considering it's like one of the best action movies and best superhero movie we've seen this year until, seeing this.
Oh man, that's a hard question. I'm not gonna lie. But there's elements. There's two different stories being told here, and I really like them both. I can't really compare the two together. Either way, I like them both, but I think I would watch X-Men again before I'd watch Captain America. How about you?
Ooh, that's really hard because
you just took my. That's exactly what I just said. So
like it works. Captain America: The Winter Soldier works great as its own like single standalone movie. Here, this requires a whole lot of knowledge of the previous movies. However, knowing everything that happened before gives you a much more emotional has a lot more emotional value when you see these characters that you've known for 10 years.
Exactly. You're right. You're taking like what I'm thinking. That's exactly right. You're so much more attached to these characters. Everyone you know, everyone you care about. Even the characters from First Class, I still feel attached to them, even though we've only known them for a couple of years.
So I don't know. It's really hard, but I guess you know what? Yeah, definitely like this. Especially when you have villains that I loved better than the villains from Winter Soldier.
Yeah, by far the villains on this I feel like they have a lot more motivation. They have a lot more charisma, a lot stronger. And I love that. Man, it's really good. Because you got to find out who is the real villain. It's all about morality in these X-Men movies, and it's so good.
So 5 out of 5?
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. So now moving on to a movie that only I saw was Disney's Maleficent, which was a retelling of the Disney version of the film Sleeping Beauty, this time focusing on Maleficent, played by Angelina Jolie. Here we see her backstory, where she used to be a fairy, although why she is human-sized, I don't know, never explained. She grew up with a human friend. They both grew up, and they had a sort of romantic relationship with one another. And then her human friend grew up to become Charlton Copley, who you may know from District 9, the A-Team, and from Elysium as the guy his name was Kruger. He grows up, he becomes all greedy, and he finds out that the only way to get the throne is to kill Maleficent because of the king's offer, because the king tried to take over the magical forest that Maleficent was guarding over, but he failed because Maleficent is a badass. So then the human friend betrays Maleficent, but doesn't kill her, but instead takes her wings away, cuts them off, and presents them to the king, saying, "Oh yeah, I totally killed her. Look at these wings I brought to you." And he became the king. And so now you have Maleficent. She's bitter. She's angry. She's like, you know what? Fuck the world. I want to do what I want. I'm going to take my revenge, and I'm going to love it.
It sounds like she got pretty screwed over.
Yeah. And so she placed the well-known curse on Princess Aurora. And, once she, on her, I think, 16th or 18th?
16th, I think.
16th birthday, she touches a pinwheel, she will fall asleep, be in like a coma forever. So now, this movie, I had pretty high expectations because, one, this was a Disney movie. Two, this featured Angelina Jolie. I mean, she was like the main focus of this whole movie.
Well, I mean, her name isn't the title of the movie.
Right. And it's like, Angelina Jolie, she's not one of those actors who just appears in any movie. She's one of those like AAA, incredibly high paid actors.
That is a valid point, yeah.
Up there with like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, I would say Robert De Niro, but considering some of the comedies he's been, like Meet the Fockers, I don't know. But yeah, and just to say, she was fantastic. She owned the role of Maleficent. You see her, you say, yes, that is Maleficent. She is awesome. You want to go root for her. You see her. I wasn't like too behind the idea of giving Maleficent a backstory, mostly because I've always known her as like the character who just loves being evil for the sake of being evil. But she still has that quality, while also still having that sympathetic backstory that just adds a lot of, that just like resonated with me instantly. And seeing her interact with with Aurora growing up, because she was raised by the three fairies, seeing her interact with Aurora throughout all those years, and having her grow this like motherly love towards her was actually very, very touching. It's like, she still wants to hate her because she sees when she sees Aurora, she only sees what her father did to her, but she eventually learns to accept what happened and grow past that and just see Aurora for who she is. Unfortunately, everything besides Maleficent was pretty terrible.
How was Aurora?
The thing is with Aurora is that she was just there. Like, she didn't really have any memorable lines. She didn't have her own moment. She was just she was a glorified plot device.
Want to be fair,
she was in the original.
That's exactly what she was. She was silent and she was a plot device. That's it.
Yeah, I loved Sleeping Beauty. But if you look at it from a critical point of view, the movie wasn't really that strong story-wise nor character-wise.
Do you think it's more artistic? It's
definitely artistic-wise. Yeah. I mean, this was from that early era of Disney films where, like, the princesses weren't really strong-ish characters. I mean, they were likable, they were memorable, but I don't know, especially with Aurora's case, she wasn't really memorable at all. But, like, yeah, it's easy to see why they chose Maleficent, because she was the character that everyone remembers from that movie.
Of course, and you saying that is actually, now that I think about it, it's a good point. That is a good point. But go on.
But you think from a movie made in 2014, they would do something to make Aurora interesting, but no. And as for Charlton Copley as the king, he was pretty good, although I thought he was kind of like a bit, I don't know, I never got behind his motivations for what he was doing. I mean, like, the narration said, oh, he was consumed by greed. He was consumed by the sins of mankind. I'm like, how? Show me. How does he suddenly become greedy?
Don't just say it.
Yeah, don't just say it. Show me it. It's not like, ooh, Magneto, he was suddenly overcome by hate.
No.
No.
Yeah, okay. I you saying that, in that sense, I can definitely see your point.
Yeah, so it's like, there was that opening montage where it's like they grew up together, and then she didn't see him for a long time, and then because he was consumed by greed, now he's the kind of person who wants to so badly get the king's throne that he is now willing to drug and metaphorically rape Maleficent. And by rape, I mean, yeah, he drugs her. She falls asleep. He takes advantage of her body.
So now let me ask you this: when she was a fairy, was she like this kind, beautiful, like fairy like lady, or did she always have that look that Maleficent has?
She's kind of like kind, beautiful, and sort of a bit of a like a sassy sort of way. She's like, like, hey man, I'm not letting you have your way, like, hey, you do things my way. But she was a lot more kinder. Here she's much more colder and much more closed off from the world. This is like, hi, Maleficent.
Now, so obviously in this one, they make her the victim in a sense.
Yeah. And, but like I said, like everything is great about her, but it's just that everything else is just so pales in comparison. And as for the king, the actor does well with what he's given. It's just that I feel like there's a strong piece of sympathy. There's something really missing from him that keeps him from being a believable villain. And the thing I absolutely hated, the thing that infuriated me were the 3 goddamn fairies.
Uh-oh.
They were terrible. They were annoying. I want to see them. I want to duct tape their mouths so badly. They were like Disney's attempt at creating the Chipettes from the Chipmunks movies. They're tiny. They have extremely high-pitched voices. They're like the Three Stooges. Yeah, they're the Three Stooges. They turned the fairies into the Three Stooges. They weren't for the sake of being the comic relief.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and they weren't funny. They were just annoying. And they were in charge of protecting Aurora, right? They're the most terrible parents ever. Like, they don't know how to raise a baby. At many times, the baby almost died because of them, but Maleficent came and rescued Aurora several times.
And was this after she had already placed a curse on her?
Yeah, because now she's living with the fairies, and the fairies are in charge of her.
Wow.
Yet they do such a shit job at protecting her that Maleficent practically raised Aurora herself from the shadows.
Dang.
I hated them.
And it's funny because of the role they play in the
original, yeah.
They're nice and they're respectable, characters.
Yeah. Huh. But I guess I get what they're trying to do. They're like, this is the real story.
Yeah. This didn't happen. It was actually this.
Yeah, but still, like, God, I did not like them at all. They were not entertaining. They were not funny in any sort of way. I just wanted Maleficent to squish them. Yeah. And, so I guess overall, Maleficent was a disappointment to me. I mean, Angelina Jolie as Maleficent was perfect. Everything else around her was just so sorely lacking. The story was, like, it's just like you have one really strong character, but everything else is just, it's just like, luckily Maleficent is in the movie a whole lot, and the movie focuses on her, and whenever she's on, she's great, but just that everything around her is just like, bothering you and kind of makes it an incredibly uneven, very mixed and uneven experience. So I guess if you really, really love Maleficent, which is quite apparent considering I've seen so many people talk about that movie when it first came out, I'd say watch it at your own risk. So I'm giving this a 2 out of 5.
Quick side note: Disney Infinity already released a character for her. And
is it like the classic Maleficent or like
it's
Angelina?
Angelina Jolie's.
She doesn't have a green skin. She has like the pale skin.
Yeah, she has the pale skin.
Oh boy. That didn't take long.
Nope.
So now we are moving on to the last film of our 2014 mid-year review, Edge of Tomorrow, starring Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. So with Tom Cruise, it's actually, from my surprise after doing quite a little bit of research, is actually based on a manga manga, however you
Manga,
pronounce.
really?
Yeah, called All You Need Is Kill. I do not know if it has that many. I do not know if it shares the exact same story as the original manga, but I'm going to assume that it has like the basic premise.
I will say this. That explains the tentacle monsters.
Could be, yes. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, anyways, the story for Edge of Tomorrow is that in the near future, So the basic story to Edge of Tomorrow is that in the near future, humanity is being invaded by aliens. These aliens are known as the Mimics. Although why they're called the Mimics, it's kind of hard to. It's kind of confusing considering they don't really mimic anything, really. They're just a mess of tentacles, but we'll get to that when we talk about them. And so, to combat the mimics, humanity have created these exosuits that contain a whole bunch of weaponry and gives the humans enhanced speed and power. So we cut to near the end of the war, where we have the humans' final assault on the what is presumed to be the mimics' base. And we have Tom Cruise, who plays the role of the reluctant hero, where he is forced into the war. I mean, he tries to his best to avoid being involved in the war. He's kind of like
the weasel.
He's a weasel. He tries to be the spokesperson. He's the person that the media goes to. And now,
not only that, but if I remember correctly, he's also the marketing marketing specialist for the army. He made this whole commercial, which made a whole bunch of people enlist. And I mean, before this whole thing even started, he was a marketing expert, something like that.
Right. He does his best to avoid combat while still being in the war. Although I really relate to this person because I know I might get a lot of slack for this, but I am not the kind of person who is willing to sign up and fight for my country because I'm just the kind of person who wants to live. I want to live.
Oh, poor you.
And I can really get behind this guy. This kind of, he wants to preserve himself, doesn't care for anyone else.
I want to say this. There's kind of a difference between someone who just, doesn't really want to go to war and someone like him. And he's kind of an ass. He's promoting people to go to war. He's like, he's
definitely, yeah.
So there's a big difference between what he's doing and what, someone like you would feel about, joining the military in the first place.
Yeah. I straight up avoid that stuff. But then when he's in the middle of the battlefield, he doesn't have any sort of combat training whatsoever. He's just put there just to be a targeting, just to have a target board on his head. So, he's just there for the aliens to kill so that the second wave of troops can get him, fight.
That's all because he's got a big mouth. He's a jackass.
Yes. Also, that is also true. And he eventually comes across a mimic, unlike the others. And he accidentally kills that mimic and ends up dying in the process. However, because he killed that special mimic, he inherits this ability to go back in time and repeat the last 24 hours.
A la Groundhog Day.
Like Groundhog's Day, yeah. Groundhog's Day, yeah. It's Groundhog's Day with
Bill Murray.
But now instead of Bill Murray, you have Tom Cruise, and instead of A Quiet Everyday Town, it's Gears of War, I guess. I don't know.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, Gears of War with Groundhog's Day.
There you go.
To steal a joke from Black Nerd Comedy, best synopsis ever. And so now he's constantly repeating every day, and he eventually, by the time he gets a grip on what's going on, he comes across Emily Blunt's character, who is a soldier who used to have the ability to repeat the days until she would win, but lost the ability. And so now every quote-unquote day, he meets up with her, he gets her up to date, and she immediately knows what's going on and trains him so that he can become a better and better soldier to the point where both of them can avoid the war and get to the true location of the Mimic secret base. And there we have Edge of Tomorrow. What were your thoughts before going in and afterwards?
I had no thoughts. I thought it was gonna be like your typical Tom Cruise movie. I was like, all right, Tom Cruise, here we go. But no,
Tom Cruise running.
no,
He's running. The man's always running.
no, it's not even like that. No, I was really surprised by this movie. I really, really, really liked this movie. I had no idea what the premise was, and then as soon as the first time started, I was thinking in my head, okay, so he's either going to repeat this date, get that plot. My other thought was this is his training for when he actually goes into the war. I'm kind of glad it went with what it actually was, because I don't know, it's hard to say. I just really enjoyed this movie. Tom Cruise's character, he's such a jerk. He's such a jackass.
But he's kind of a likable jackass.
He is. That's the kind of cool part. He's a likable jackass, and it's funny seeing him go from this helpless little man who's trying to weasel him. Even when he's at the military base the first time, he's still trying to weasel himself out. And when he comes back the first time, he's shocked, and he's still somewhat trying to weasel his way out. He doesn't understand what happened, and in my mind, I'm like, I would have thought, this is my second and only chance. I thought this went Final Destination on me, but again, the movie is just so much fun. I love the characters. I love the premise. Mm-hmm. You go.
Well, just like Tom Cruise is such like an amazing actor that he gets you on his side. And although here, he's definitely playing like a much more unlikable character, but you still want to root for him, and especially when you see just how the pain he goes through, going through that losing battle every time. It's like they do a really great thing where they don't specifically tell you how much time has passed, especially when they go through little montages here and there, that you gotta wonder, just how many days has this man lived through to get to the point where he is on the verge of just giving up at one point.
What I like is that there's scenes that there's scenes that you don't even know that it's his first time already visiting. Mm-hmm. There's scenes where he's already been there a couple times, but you don't know that. You learn that as a dialogue progresses. I kind of like that too.
Yeah. The movie doesn't specifically tell you. It just shows you through his expressions, through his words, through his interactions.
And another thing about Tom Cruise is he's not the rock star. He's not the action hero in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, by then he becomes a full-on badass. He's like, I know where all these aliens are. At first he didn't even know how to turn the safety off on his exosuit. And then by the end of the movie, he's just literally running circles around the mimics.
Yeah, and another cool thing is seeing him transition from this little whiny jerk to someone like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna help you. And then you see him get broken down again because he figures like, there's a lot of steps into his character. From wimp to hero to wimp. Well, not wimp, but sad and depressed to hero again, which I kind of like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very classic trope of the reluctant hero learning to accept what is happening to him and when he learns he cannot run away, he learns to make do with what he's got. And it takes like a very familiar story line and turns it into something that feels new and original. And now we got to have to talk about Emily Blunt's character. She was amazing. Easily one of the best female protagonists in an action movie, probably since Ellen Ripley from the Alien movies.
I wouldn't go as far to say that. She was a likable character, but by far for me, Tom Cruise just stole the show. She was just for me, she was just a little side kind of romance thing, and I didn't get too invested in her. My attention, my focus was on Tom Cruise. He was just at a certain point, he just became so likable, and just the resetting part. It was almost like just a montage of having a reset. I loved it. I love the fact that almost all the first half of the movie takes place doing the same events over and over again, trying to repeat to fix what went wrong. Every time he takes a step forward, he immediately dies. And one more step forward, immediately dies. I love that.
And it's funny as how during those montages they do a bit of comedy of how many times he dies.
Yeah. Or for example, when there's a very, very important plot point where the characters have to die. If they were to get captured, they have to die.
Right, because because in order to have a better chance of succeeding, it's like, okay, we're not going to get nowhere if we get captured. We have to kill you right now so that you can reset.
Well, it's not just that, but the main reason why that was a big part of it too. But another reason is they can't afford him to be, to be rescued and, have to be given blood, because when you're given blood, you lose that ability.
Right, because it's the abilities in their blood, which is kind of like a weird, almost kind of plot hole, because I'm wondering, how does he know he lost the ability to reboot, to restart the day if he can't, can't restart the day? But then he says, like, he feels it. He feels like he can. It's kind of a weird excuse, but I'll roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. But man, so there's that little thing where, like, they can't afford to give themselves or to get caught. But I just love the fact that, like, oh, you broke your arm. Oh, it's gonna take you too long to heal, so let's just kill you. Boom.
Yeah.
I'll reset. And it just happens over and over again. Tom Cruise is like, no, please wait up, and he's dead again. Start over.
Yeah.
And just also another thing I like is seeing how every day he lives, he changes his interactions with the people around him. So especially with a sergeant in the beginning, I just love the way like he progressively changes with him. I really like this movie. I'm gushing here.
And I do want to go back to Emily Blunt, because she's a great character. She fills the role perfectly as that, like, strong-willed, unwavering, a soldier. She knows exactly what to do. She's gone through battle so many times that almost nothing faces her. And
we kind of know what the reason for that is, though. It's the same reason nothing really phases Tom Cruise near the end of the movie.
Right. She goes through the exact same thing, and when you learn of the people that she lost during this time, just gives her that much more sympathy. And she fills the role perfectly as the mentor / romantic interest for Tom Cruise. And it's not so much a romantic interest, that's put on the back burner, really, because he's like, hey, listen, whatever you're thinking right now, I don't care how many times you've got to know me through whenever you have to reboot, but just know that our focus here is to get rid of the mimics, and that is what they do.
And there's a scene where Emily Blunt, her character, she speaks of, of this person who she had to see die over and over and over and over. And, that really affected her. And in the same sense, you can see that effect, in Tom Cruise's character, too. I don't know if I'm giving some spoilers away here.
No, because, it's kind of... I don't think it's that much of a spoiler, because you know that he reboots so many times that, obviously so many things had gone wrong.
Right. So in this case, she dies too, and he sees her die, and he reboots, and she dies. And so you can really imagine what kind of a toll that takes on a person. And, you're with them every single time, and they restart. And I will say I did like that part.
So the last thing I wanted to get into was the mimics themselves in the movie. So what were your initial impression of them, considering they're the main antagonistic force?
I thought that they were very disturbing tentacle monsters.
Yeah, well, pretty much anything with tentacles these days is pretty disturbing.
Absolutely. But, I thought they were pretty cool the way they moved around. They kind of reminded me of... almost like a saw, almost like a blade saw, like just going zzz.
Right. I love the way they move. It's kind of like they're very erratic and random in the way they move around. They just whip their tendrils around. And the interesting thing is that they kind of make shapes out of their tentacles, where they're kind of like lion shaped, or like a 4-legged animal. And whenever they would walk, they make an arm out of a group of tentacles, and then...
It's almost like they're dragging themselves.
Yeah, they're dragging their bodies while creating a new set of arms with every step they make.
Now I'm wondering, what's their usual way of killing? Is it Is it like impalement, bashing,
It's hard to tell, because whenever you do see Tom Cruise getting killed, it's kind of like a quick cut to him waking up again.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm assuming that they just I don't. Do they
Slice
have
and dice?
slice and dice? Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just like sheer brute force.
And that's what I was thinking. Are we talking blunt hits or like sharp? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
And like they're all like part of this one. Like they kind of have this hive mind mentality, which seems to be pretty popular. A popular concept to use for a group of aliens that don't have like human-like behaviors. They just give them like this like big animalistic quality. And while this sort of stuff has been done before, I really like how it was used here, and how there's this very mysterious force that's like tying all that's like at the center of all this massive invasion. And
it all comes down to what?
It all comes down to that one thing that once you get to that one thing, it deactivates all of them. And that is kind of cliche.
The MacGuffin?
The magical MacGuffin, where once you do that, then, everything goes well. But, like I said, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but it's a movie that uses, like, familiar ideas and gives them, does them very well with the help of very strong writing and characters. And remember, what do they call the big guy? The Omega or the Alpha? The Alpha, yeah. The Alpha was pretty badass.
It had a pretty... it was blue. It had like a bluish-glowish tint, right?
Right. And I was telling you how it looks just like a tentacle version of Leatherback from Pacific Rim, where it's a big monster. It has a glowing mouth, and it has like a very gorilla-esque shape to it, or like structure or posture to him, and that we can definitely tell uses brute force.
Oh yeah.
And it even has a face. Like, I'm not sure if the others had faces. Maybe they had like the glowing yellow mouths, but this one you can tell he has eyes and a mouth.
Yeah, no, this is very distinct.
And I love how they set him up as like the final boss early on in the movie. Just like once you see that guy and you learn what the heck that thing is, it's like that's the thing you need to overcome.
Oh yeah.
So it's very well how they establish how much of a threat that character
is. Is he really
is.
the final boss, or is the final thing the final boss? Or would you consider that final thing more of the layer?
Well, maybe he's like the last obstacle before getting to the final boss.
There you go.
I guess, yeah. So I guess now we can finally go into our final thoughts on Edge of Tomorrow.
Uh-huh. Well, we've been praising it throughout the whole thing, so I think it's no surprise to say that I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 for me. Yeah. I loved it. I really did. I'd go back and watch it again. In fact, I don't know why I haven't watched it again. And this is a movie I'd buy on DVD, Blu-ray, whatever floats your boat.
Well, this was my second time viewing Edge of Tomorrow. Freaking fantastic, brilliant, and quite original. Although technically it's not original because it was actually based on a light novel. A Japanese light novel, which was turned into a manga, which is now turned into this movie.
See, now it really makes sense. That's why they had the tentacle monsters in the first place. Now all the pieces are coming together.
It all makes sense now.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it feels very fresh and original.
It did. It really did.
And it's like one of the best science fiction films I've seen in a while. And the great thing is, this movie, even though it's based on a manga / light novel, it actually feels very original.
I would have never guessed that it was.
Right, and it does feel very original in that of all the stuff we've seen this year, it's always like, sequels, adaptations, comic book stuff. And this is technically an adaptation, but it feels something fresh and new. And of course, Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, they are fantastic in this, and they're the ones that really tie this all together. And without them, I'm not sure if the movie would have been half as good.
Yeah, no, I think we're both agreed they were both pretty good actors.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, 5 out of 5 for me. It's very interesting how many times we've given out a 5 out of 5, despite the fact that we want to be more
conservative.
I guess conservative, and I guess more critical of the films that we watch. But this has been an incredible year for films.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our mid-year review. We hope you've enjoyed. Wait, what?
Wait. Seriously, man?
What?
You're gonna ignore the movie you've been waiting 5 years for. You're gonna completely just disregard it and not mention it once.
Well, you see, my friend, the arrogance of YouTube is thinking Godzilla doesn't deserve its own review, and not the other way around.
Let them fight.